And we do the Pledge of Allegiance now, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have the roll call?
Yes. Ms. Drumheller?
Here.
Mr. Renzi?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here.
Mr. Denise?
Here.
And Mr. Agadello is not here yet. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any announcements and agenda modifications? No. I'd like to approve the minutes.
I move that the minutes be approved as written.
Can I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Minutes are approved. Public input? Anybody here would like to say something? Okay for that. Yeah. Unfinished business, item A, current projects updated.
Mr. Chair, I'll just give a brief update on projects that we have going on within the Leisure Services Department within the city. We currently, Hurricane Ian came through. We fared pretty well with that. We had some minimal damage. We had a lot of debris throughout our parks, a lot of palm fronds, a few trees down. So we've been working on cleaning up on that for the last couple of weeks. So staff is still working with that. Another item that's not really a project, but we have been dealing with some issues with vandalism in our parks in restroom facilities. So we have installed a few cameras in some different places. The skate park, I know in the past, was always a little bit of a problem. We had an issue there, it's probably been about 6 weeks ago now, that the cameras identified the people pretty clearly on what happened, and the police department got involved. So I know that was an area you all have discussed in the past with some concerns. So I just want you to let you know that the cameras are working in that area, and the police department, we were able to locate the kids, and there have been some charges pressed based on what happened and the damage that was incurred on that.
Do we have cameras in other restrooms, other parks then?
So the cameras at the skate park cover the skate park area and the restroom facility by the football fields. We also have cameras at the splash pad, is a new one we just had installed about a month ago. So we're able to see the splash pad and those areas there. Also at the creative playground restroom, we were getting a lot of vandalism there. It was happening pretty frequently. And literally the first day we put the camera up, we had 5 kids trespass from that facility. So in this year's budget, we have, I think, 7 more cameras. So we're going to be covering a lot more of our parks. And the cameras are really helpful for us, because I can come in, and if we have any reports of anything from our cleaning company, we can look and see, who was there. If we can tell anything from the exterior of the building, that's where we really can get our help from, the cameras. Obviously, we're not interior of the building, but the cameras have done a really good job so far.
What time are we looking at that? It seems like quite a few of these are happening. Or is it like evening when it starts to get dark out?
So the skate park issues and creative playground was pretty consistent, happening Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Later in the afternoon, actually, I think the big time that they did a lot of the vandalism at the skate park in the office building, and they went out and threw a whole bucket of paint out on the concrete, and just spray paint and doing all that was actually in the afternoon, right in the broad daylight. But some of the other ones, I know the creative playground was getting closer to dark, but they were pretty brazen with what they did at the skate park. So, but that's been addressed. I can say that we check the cameras pretty frequently now. We haven't had any reports of anything in those areas recently. All those kids that were involved were trespassed, and I think there were quite a few of them criminally charged in what happened there as well.
So is it posted that there are cameras Or do we not
We,
post?
we do
post
have
that?
posting that, you know, at most of our parks already, even if we don't have cameras there, it's still, you know, posted. But we are, like I said, in the budget this year, we have, I think, 7 more that we're gonna be ordering and putting in to many of our parks.
Brian, since you opened the skate park up to the kids, this has been happening more?
So it went in phases. You know, the big thing that when we were doing our initial assessment of the skate park when I first came on board, as far as the staffing and what was happening, the numbers showed that rarely anyone was using that skate park. We were paying a staff member to be there for, I guess to prevent things from happening, but it wasn't there to supervise anyone using the skate park because nobody was using it. I brought those numbers to the committee about 3 years ago that showed our yearly revenue from the skate park, and it clearly, you know, showed that no one was using it. Since that time, since we eliminated the staff, the skate park gets used a lot. I can look at the camera and there's a lot of families, adults, kids that go in and skate. Even during the middle of the day, there's adults that are in the skate park skating. So it's used a lot more frequently. What we had a time period where we get a group of kids, you know, in the summertime, a lot of times it happens, that don't have anything else to do, and they just congregate in that area and they become mischievous and do things. So we dealt with that issue a few years ago. It came back again this summer, and like I said, we were able to identify one specific incident happened where they destroyed the office building and caused about $5,000 or $6,000 in damage to the facility, and we were able to address it then, and it's gotten much better since then.
So does it seem like it's summertime that these are happening more often than not, and weekends? It's weekends. I'm just wondering, do we want somebody maybe to be there on weekends, like late afternoon, you know, middle afternoon to evening, just on weekend times?
So I'll say, let's see how it plays out going forward. Since the word has gotten out that those kids have either been trespassed or charged, we haven't had any issues. I think, you know, unfortunately, it takes setting an example and making an example at times. But I think let's kind of see how it continues to go throughout the school year and once we get into next summer and see if that's something. My biggest fear is having someone out there. It typically is driving people away from even going there. But also the large groups were doing a little bit of the same thing.
Right.
So I think, you know, the police department's been great there with their assistance with it, and they've been proactive. It's been interesting. I've seen a few times on the cameras, the cops just stop in and they go out and interact with the kids in the skate park. So it's, you know, it's been a good thing for them as well, and the interaction between the police department and the kids there. And so I think let's give it that a little bit of time to work through those issues.
So when the kids are caught, then we don't really know, I mean, are they given, like, get fined and for the damages and then it goes back into the park, or do you know how that happens?
Yeah, so I think most of them were minors, so I haven't gotten the details on exactly what the punishment or what's going to happen. I think they're still working through all those details. I know that they were charged, the ones that did, you know, the majority of the damage. So I think we've got to kind of let that play out and see what happens there.
Okay.
So any more questions on that? I just wanted to update you all on that because I know that's something we budgeted for additional cameras, and I just want you all to see what's happening with those and why we feel the need to have them. Another thing that's budgeted for this coming year is the swing and bench park down across the street from Harbor Lights Motel on the east side. That's something that staff will be working on, coming up with some conceptual drawings over the next few months and try to get that project moving forward. We'll obviously bring it before you all for discussion and approval before we go to City Council for their approval on it as well. So that, and then if you're down in that area, you can see on the west side we have demolished the Harbor Lights facility. We will be removing a couple of gas containers that we found, gas storage containers that were found during demolition. Those will be removed. I think it's on Friday. that the contractor's coming over to handle that. So we're moving forward on that as well. Athletic fields, Barber Street, the Little League is pretty active out there right now. So is the football cheerleading program. So it's pretty active on a nightly basis. I know there's games out there, so, you know, go out and check them out. There's games at night with baseball and softball during the week, and then also there's football plays on Saturdays quite frequently at home. So go out and check them out. Some of the projects that we didn't get to this past year just because of funding. I know we had the backstop scheduled for replacement. That price went up about 33% on us, so we're trying to wait for the pricing on that to come back down a little bit. But that's where we are with that project, with the backstops. So with that, any questions on anything from you all on projects? Playgrounds will be coming up soon. I know I keep saying it, but we've ran into a couple issues with some designs and getting some price estimates on that. So we're still working through with a couple companies. I'm not the biggest fan of how some companies are adding additional cost, you know, to it. They're saying, well, here's the price for the unit, but then here we're going to charge you another $10,000 because we're having a hard time getting the materials. So I'm working back and forth on those, and I want to see us get the most for our money on our playground projects. Because if you remember, this year we had $50,000. The previous year we had $35,000, and we were going to get basically the same playground units for $15,000 more. And that's not something I'm interested in. So
when do we have to spend that money by? I'm just wondering if we can wait till after Christmas to maybe look at pricing again.
we can. It's already carried over from last year. So both of these playgrounds, Easy Street and Filbert, were budgeted last fiscal year. But if you remember, due to the delays of COVID, the playgrounds for Blossom and George, the installations were delayed until March, April, May of this year. And we didn't want to go forward with anything until we had those installed and kind of see the end result. So once that happened, then I started reaching out to companies, and that's when I got the information about the surcharge that we were being charged on top of the purchase price. And so we can give it a little bit of time. I'm still in negotiations and discussions with, different companies and trying to see where the market's going with it. But
I mean, it's not like we don't have playgrounds already set up in those parks. I mean, if we could save a little bit of money off of that, I would be okay for us waiting if we can,
Okay.
just to see how it pans out, because it's not like there aren't playground equipment set at those parks already, especially with the costs right now. It's kind of high.
I'll continue to do my research, and like I said, I haven't brought you all anything because I wasn't happy with the price. So I'm not going to bring you, something that we get the same thing for $15,000 more. I don't think that's justified, and it's not smart spending of our money, of the city's money. And that's all the updates I have.
All right. We'll move on to item B, community member park updates.
So just for clarification, this was the item, in the past, we always had it at the end, and that kind of portion was eliminated. So it was requested by the committee to add it under unfinished business on a monthly basis, that you all can provide updates from your parks as you've gone out into the community, any things that have been brought to your attention. We can have those discussions now.
Easy Street Park. What is going on with all that brown vegetation all over there? I was kind of surprised to see all that.
So we had a very dry summer. The pond levels got pretty low. The water got really hot, and we got a big algae bloom within the park, within the pond there. We have a well that we utilize to fill that up or add additional water when we need to. We ran that over the summer a little bit, free flow well that we have. And we tried to minimize it as much as we can, but it's just we didn't get the water, and the water temperatures got really hot, and that's what spurred it to happen.
Can we take that brown, can we take it out, that grass, instead of letting it decompose and add to the bottom of the...
Correct. Our issue right now is being able to have staff available to do it. Obviously, it's kind of the worst time of the year with us Staffing wise, because for one, we're still down some staff. And two, it's our busiest time of the year. And three, the hurricane kind of threw us a little bit off schedule with what we were doing. But it's something that we can look at here going into the little bit of the cooler months. If we're able to get in there and do some removal, we'll do it.
Brian, is there any more movement on the Garden Club Park?
So, I know we went in and cleared the vegetation all the way around it. It seems to have, done a really nice job. I mean, it's pretty clear we're maintaining those edges, at the current time. It's just more of us having time to come back with a design on the walking path and then notify the residents. So that'll be one that moves forward here as we get into the winter, and making sure that we don't kind of use the summertime to do that. I want to make sure that everybody's home and in the area before we bring it back in front of the public for a discussion on that walking pathway on the to complete it all the way around the back. But we're set to do it. We're set up so that we can do it if it's something the community wants. But we are going to continue to maintain the cleared vegetation. I just think you go by that park now, and I mean, it looks a lot different now with it cleared out and cleaned up and got rid of the invasives that were there. And you know, I can tell you the wildlife is there. I see it. I was out there just last week walking in the back section, and they're there. You know, the sandhill cranes and everybody's there.
Are you talking about squirrels, Brian?
There are some squirrels there too. I will say, Mr. Morrow, I know he's not here tonight, but he did bring a couple items to my attention about the pickleball courts. He emailed me and told me he couldn't come, but he had, one of the nets was broken, so we got that replaced. And then he also asked me to look into the installation of, a filtered, water fountain like we installed in most of the other parks. So during COVID, if you remember, we used, American Rescue Plan Act money to install handless water fountains, or touchless water fountains, not handless, touchless water fountains. So he requested one of those to be put in out there. My staff is currently assessing to see if we can install that unit on that restroom. That restroom is a prefab building, similar to the one that we have at Splash Pad. So we're just trying to assess if we're able to put that unit on there, because it was already a modular prefab building when it came in with it installed. Mm-hmm. So those are the two updates from the things he had.
Okay, moving on. Item D, continued discussion on disc frisbee golf.
Mr. Chair, if I may, item C, we jumped over that one, the Community Member Recognition Program.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I just have a quick update on that one. We've gotten some applications in. I was not able to get the final number today, but it did close as of last Friday. And I spoke with Mr. Denise today, and we're going to be meeting over the next couple weeks to, make a selection on that we'll be able to present back to the committee at the November meeting.
Brian, do you know how many applications we received for that?
I do not. I apologize. I didn't. Ron was handling, so everything was going into Ron, and he was handling all of that, and I did not get those numbers from him today. I know it closed on Friday, and he was kind of getting all that together for me.
Okay, so move on to item D now. Continued discussion on disc frisbee golf.
Yes. So, Mr. Chair, if I may, I've got a Google Earth image of Filbert Park, which I know was kind of the highlight that we discussed at the last meeting when we were discussing it. And so I've got that. I'm just going to walk up front so that I can kind of pinpoint out some areas and for you all to be able to see that as well. All right, so this is obviously Filbert Park. We can zoom out. We can see this is the playground structure. I'm just using the hand as the pointer on that. Can you all see that? So you've got the entrance here. You've got the playground structure. There's a small shaded or gazebo here that has a picnic table underneath it. So once you get past the playground structure, there's just a big, large field here. It is maintained by a tractor mower. We do not mow it with our zero-turn mowers. So it's kind of a little bit more of a rough grade. I was actually out there walking it today. It's not terribly bad, but it is just more a little bit of natural area that hasn't been completely graded out. One of the concerns that I wanted to just kind of bring up on this item is when I was out there today, I saw about 15 gopher tortoise areas. These are areas that we have to make sure that we don't disturb. We have to maintain and because we don't want to have to, pay to do any removal on those.
Are you
But
saying in that red area?
correct. So you can't, let's see if I zoom in, you might can see a little bit. So if you see all these areas that kind of look like high grass, so there's quite a few, and there's probably a little bit more than what's shown on here. They're all have gopher tortoise habitat holes in them. So we actually, with our tractors, we set a perimeter around it, and we do not mow over those areas. So if you go out there and you ride by, you'll see that those areas look like we haven't maintained them, and that's accurate. We'll go through every now and then and weed eat and stay as far away as we can. But we maintain those barriers for our tractor purposes. So then on here, I kind of just laid out a little bit to show the footage that we have to kind of utilize if the decision's made to look into this further. I know I'm not a professional in disc golf. I'm not going to pretend to be. It seems there's a lot of open space here. I don't know that there's much of a challenge. But that's not to say that we can't do a few things here, and I'll kind of point those out that I think, just on my research, might be possibilities. So we go from this one corner here down into this corner over here, and it's approximately 220 feet. That I found is it's not for your skilled disc golfers, but for your normal everyday person that may go out just to have fun. It seems like a reasonable distance based on my research for a par 3 or something to that nature. But like I said, there's no real challenge here unless we kind of tucked it back in right along the edge here, so the hole could be a little bit of a challenge area. This area is overgrown. There's a pathway here. Well, it's not overgrown. It's just we couldn't do anything here. We could come through and clear it out and possibly put another hole in here that would add a little bit of a challenge here if that's something that's determined as a want in that area. And then when we get to the back portion, so I drew this kind of straight line 180 feet, but it really would require them to either go up and over some of these trees here in the middle or have to play it a little bit of a different route with some curvature to it in getting that 100 feet out of there back down to this back corner. Then there's obviously a long straight run here of 370 feet. So kind of two thoughts on this. We could probably, if the choice was made, make it into a couple, like 2 holes, shorten it up and maybe tuck a hole back in some brush over here in one of the areas, and then kind of start the other one back in this corner and do the same thing down in this area here. And then obviously we've got this wide open area here that's 305 feet, but my concern is making sure that we stay away from the gopher tortoise areas. There's also an area when I was driving today, there's kind of a shaded alleyway down here that we could squeeze 1 or 2 holes in, just trying to stay away from the playground once we have kids out there and stuff. And also, once you get about from this point back to the front here, there are open areas to these houses that I think might, factor into the kind of the layout a little bit. We're on the back side here. There's quite a bit of brush. It's actually mostly invasives on that back side, so we could do some removal, but I don't know that we want to get into doing a lot because then it opens up, interfering with these residents on the back side. So that's kind of the open field area. I know we had discussed, or there was, discussion about, we have this area here that we have about 3 different walking paths through. So this triangle wooded area here. My concern is if we were to do that, is you really eliminate the public benefit to anyone other than disc golfers. because they can't really walk, you can't have public walking on those pathways, because if you have someone playing disc golf, those areas are really narrow, and it's not completely open in there. So there's specific pathways that you walk through this area here. And as you can see, I mean, you can see it's not open, but the pathways kind of come through here, and then it just meanders a little bit through here and comes back out to this point, and then it continues in here. There's an opening here, and then there's a front pathway. But once you get off of the pathway, it gets a little bit thicker. So those are kind of, those are my layouts as far as, what our options are at Filbert. I did try to, look and see what else we had as options. I know in the past we have, the idea was thrown about with the island at Schumann Drive Park or Schumann Lake, and that was a lot of resident feedback against that idea. That's a really big nature island there, and it's well preserved in there, and there's a lot of gopher tortoises on that island as well. And then also, Stormwater Park is honestly probably the best option, but we can't do it.
There's no way.
We can't
Never
do
get
it.
approval for stormwater.
So that's a definite no on that one. So, I'm open to any other ideas. Before we start, really running up a budget and looking at what it's going to cost, as I said, my few concerns with Filbert is how much of a challenge is it really going to be? Like I said, I don't play disc golf, so maybe it is a little bit of a challenge to have a 270-foot hole or 220-foot hole. I don't know that. But that just concerns for me is how much of a challenge is it going to be? We have a lot of gopher tortoises on that property. Like I said, we don't mow it with our zero-turn mowers, our landscaping mowers. We mow it with big tractors. And then that brings in my last area. A little bit of concern is ADA accessibility. So that brings in a little bit of a different element that we have to consider with that. I know we don't have to make accessible every single hole, but we have to make as much accessibility as we can, and that area would require, some work to make accessibility within that area.
Brian, do you have any idea how much utilization happens in those walking paths? Because that's my park, and I've never seen anyone walking there.
So I've never, honestly, I've seen a few people walking in there, but it had actually gotten overgrown as of about 2 years ago. Actually, up until earlier this year in 2022, it was overgrown. You couldn't walk those pathways. I had 3 residents call asking for us to come in and clear it out. So we went in this year. Like I said, it's just happened. I think they went in January, February, March, and re-cleared those areas out.
Okay.
So I know that it wasn't being used, but we did get a request from the residents in the area to open those pathways back up for access. So I don't have hard numbers. I really haven't been out there to see the usage.
Is there any potential, I don't know what our acreage is, but my other park, I have 2 very underutilized parks. I have Periwinkle Park, and about the only activity that I see happening there is people eat lunch there, but they usually eat in their cars over where you can park right by the lake there. But Periwinkle also has a lot of tree stuff that could be potentially a good course also. And that doesn't have, there's no walking path, so there's no intrusion there. It's more kind of on the main drag. So it doesn't feel as much like the smaller little neighborhood parks. But I don't know if there is enough property there to potentially do 9 holes.
So I know and I got just sitting in front of me a little bit of a disc golf course acreage guide that says, red tees, which is less than an 850 rating, which is very minimum usage that you would have, still requires somewhere in the area of 6 to 9, 12 acres, is what their numbers are showing here. And this came directly from the Disc Golf Course, or Professional Disc Golf
Yeah.
Association.
Yeah.
Is who I got these numbers from. You know, periwinkle, I think what we're gonna find is, I don't know that we can really find anywhere to get, we're gonna be hard pressed to find anywhere that we can even get 9 holes. Even at Filbert, I don't know that.
You know what,
We could
Brian?
do it, but-
Instead, because I've played kind of when I was up north, and it was through, in the summer where they do cross-country skiing, so the paths were wider through the woods. But instead of us trying to figure out what would work, I think the disc golf people should get together and walk Filbert and tell us what they think, if it's good or if it's not, and come back and report to us about, because unless somebody else knows what's good or not to have for disc golf, it's hard for me to decide, yeah, this looks like a good course, but if it's not, they're not going to use it.
Correct.
So if they're interested in it, I think they should go and put the effort out and go walk Filbert, and go through the woods, talk to, tell them about the gopher thing, and maybe they can come up with, if they think that's a good park, it's something that's manageable, they can maybe, route, like, instead of doing straight runs, we could go here to here to here. But for us to go and pick a park and say we're going to do disc golf, I think the group that was interested in it should be the group to go and look at it and then report back to us what they think about Filbert. They might say, no, it's not going to work. And then we aren't sitting here trying to figure out if we can make it work or not. And I always feel that if there are people that want something in the city, then they should come and they should help and do input to show us that they want it there, and give us feedback on it. That's just my thought.
I think that's a great idea.
And I think we have someone from the public here to speak, so we could let them speak on the item and go from there and see what input they have.
Yeah. Well, anything else on the disc frisbee?
Just ask for public input.
Yes, we need some public input. You're the public.
My name's Todd Clifton. I've lived in Sebastian. Well, I've visited since the mid-'80s, but I'm a homeowner here. So, yeah, I would just to speak to what you mentioned earlier. I've walked the park. It's a great piece of land, especially for like a 9-hole course, depending on how the tee pads are laid out. A lot of folks will. So what happens is depending on what you do. So you don't have to have like a big long course. It can be technically hard. So you could bury the baskets in between trees and things like that. So you could make that very difficult or very easy. Sometimes what they'll do, they'll have a beginner tee pad for youth or folks that can't throw further, and then they'll have a further away tee pad for folks that have a stronger arm. So you could have one basket but different tees, and it works like golf, the same kind of thing. So you wouldn't necessarily have to tie everyone into using one tee. You could have an intermediate tee and a beginner tee. So
I was
there's that.
kind of struck by the 6 to 9 acres because the church has a small, that's 9 holes, isn't
It's
it,
not,
the church?
yeah.
And it seems like you can pretty much see the 9. I mean, I don't even think it's a quarter of an acre that those baskets are on.
But I think part of the fun of disc golf is that instead of just throwing in an open field, is having some angles, having some bushes or trees around there to make it, instead of just walking in an open field area.
Mm-hmm.
Did you walk the trail in the back in the woods?
I went through the whole thing.
What were your thoughts on that?
So, actually having people there, disc golfers, would make that park a little more palatable to the locals, because Hobart Park in Indian River County, that across from the fairgrounds, that was actually kind of a creepy park at one point, and they had a new parks director move in, And they said, hey, we have a problem park, there's creepy people hanging out there, what do we do? And they said, put a disc golf course in. So the one thing about disc golf course is, like, the people, they usually love the course, they protect it, they look out for it, and they're walking around, right? And they aren't there to... So when I walked it, I just got a weird vibe, because it was kind of dark, and I was waiting for someone to jump out, actually, you know, and I don't think the locals probably use that park, you know, just for that reason alone. But Hobart Park, there's people that walk their dogs, they bike around the loop there, they walk. That park gets a lot of use now, apparently, because of the disc golfers. So we resurrected that park over there. I don't know who the parks manager is over there, but he'd probably be a great resource to talk to, you know.
I mean, I think some of our members had gone to the county park, correct? I think some of you have visited that one, and, I mean, does that one seem to work? Because for me, it looks like you're throwing across where people, I think it was mentioned, people with picnic tables sitting. My concern is the other people at the park, you know, utilizing it, and, you know, obviously with disc golf. Is that an issue, or?
So we won't throw where there's other folks. And if someone's sitting right up where and picnicking there, we'll like pass the hole by or not throw toward them. Or now that we've moved a couple holes because of that. So they laid out the course, and because the park is now a nice place to be, a bunch of people go there now, and then we had to remove some of our holes because of that. So the park's gotten a lot more use because we're there, and then we had to give up a couple of our holes. But so we've expanded from 9 to 12, and now the county is going to pay for 18 holes because they like us so much. They want us to go, and they've actually dug into the woods for us. So they're looking to expand that particular park, and then they're going to build one at Dodgertown, and so they like it, you know.
And can I ask you, how many types of discs do you use when you play?
I've got more discs than I can carry, but in my bag, I'll have like probably at least 15 discs.
Mr. Denise, turn your microphone on.
Oh, I thought I had it on, I'm sorry.
Push it again, it was on.
I thought it was on.
I was signing yours.
I'm sorry. Is it on now?
Sounds better.
Okay. It seems, the review I did, and,
Just ignore the screen.
thank you. The people using the design courses that I see recommended have something that, you know, this is, I don't know what they call it, because I'm too young to play golf. There's a master's course, and then there's a junior course, but they're all using the same layout, I mean, the same amount of land, but they have, you know, different holes for it, depending on the quality of people. Am I looking at the wrong stuff, or is this
Right.
for the colleges? And I did, when I started looking at it, the interest that I was presented that we could bring people into Sebastian. And I used to be for that, but lately I don't know.
They're coming in.
I'm still agreeable. But I was just wondering it.
Yeah, so I guess I'm representing my disc golf club here. So we work in conjunction with the park department at Hobart, and then so some cities will say, no, we want to go out and pay X amount of dollars to some professional thing, or they might just partner with the local club. And so we've designed Indian Hills down in Fort Pierce recently, and then Hobart Park, we designed that. So the county usually will come to the local disc golf club, or you know, and then they'll create a partnership. We'll say, hey, this would be a good layout. And then we had to change a couple holes because the folks, like you're saying, started to use it, and then.
Could your group do that? Could you
Oh, yeah.
come up with some kind of a route or a plan, you know, I don't know if maybe even staking out, you know, some wooden stakes where you think, and we could actually go back and walk that.
Yeah, so,
And the
yeah.
cost of actually the post and the net, really, do you know what each individual one is about? And
The current prices that I saw for each hole with like it looks like a basketball hoop, but it's
Right,
metal
metal.
down the side was between $1,200 and $1,500 a piece for the actual basket. But that did not include the cement slab.
Is there a slab under it, or is it just grass?
So what we do usually is have a concrete bucket, like a 5-gallon, and we'll fill it with concrete and have like a collar, a post, and then we'll bury that.
Okay.
And then that way it makes it easy if you ever need to move the basket. You can, and there's a lock at the bottom, so it locks the basket to the the collar.
So you can replace it if you need? Because once those baskets are up, really the maintenance is low on it. It's not like the other park things that we have that have to be maintained and changed out.
Right.
But I'm just speaking for myself, but if you or your group, if you're thinking Filbert might be a possibility
Yeah.
of maybe doing a practice walkout through it and maybe stake where the path would go and maybe where the holes, if we did 9 holes, but also in the thought that if we were to expand to more holes, that we would be able to do that. I think myself, I think disc golf is probably like, it's very popular, I know, in other places, just because it's nice walking and it doesn't require a lot of things to have, you know, golf clubs and
Right.
balls and all that stuff. And you can do it anytime, you don't have to schedule. So that's just my thought, is if your group would go and do a layout of distance and mark where you think maybe the basket should be, and then come back to us and share that with us.
Okay.
Well,
And
Brian, is
Mr.
that
Chair, if I may, I would be happy to meet you all out there and
Yeah.
kind of discuss options on where we could go with the holes. You know, even areas we might could clear that would help out. One of the big things I will say is once we get to that stage, we'll just have to have a community meeting, with the local residents and have discussions with them as well, or give them the opportunity to come, similar to what we're gonna do with Garden Club, to have that discussion with the community, and obviously we'll take it to city council as well. But it will be more than likely have to be something that we have to budget for, because we're not gonna have the funds if each, you know, hole is gonna cost us $1,200 to $1,500 plus concrete expense for the pads. That's gonna be something that we're gonna have to budget for.
How does the borough budget theirs? Do they?
So we don't have pads over at Hobart yet. So I'm pretty sure they paid for the baskets, and then we have work days where we'll go in and clean stuff up if need be, you know. But we're definitely working with the Parks Department and saying, hey, do we do this or do you do that? You know,
What is
that
the
kind of thing.
material that they have for the tee boxes?
It depends on, so some of them are concrete, some of them aren't, you know, depending on where they are. So the new holes, the woods holes, they're just mapped out. And then, I know, there's a big 18-hole tournament championship level course in Gainesville. It took them 10 years to get tee pads. And that's a well-played, popular course. So you don't necessarily have to do the tee pads up front. And if you get like 9 baskets, I know the manufacturers give you a discount, 9 or 18. You know, so it's cheaper if you get them in the package like that.
Todd, what's the situation with the church 9 holes? Is that like open to the public?
It is, but they bought the cheapest baskets you can possibly get, and they weren't galvanized, and they rusted out. Yeah, and
So it's
this is,
so it's not a course that people, I haven't seen
Oh.
any, how many people that go there?
I go there, I take people there, I know people that go there all the time.
Okay.
There's a lot of people that go there during the day, during the week. I know a lot of kids in the neighborhood go there and play, families. I've seen them, I've met them, you know, because it's the only thing that we've got, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So can I ask you a couple of questions? How many people play at one time, and how do you regulate that?
So, like, it's just like golf, where you have a card, and then you'll have 4 people, or maybe 5 or 3 people, however many people in your group on a card. So we'll have a league play, and then, however, if a family shows up or a group of friends, you could have 8 people on that card, and usually there's not a backup or folks who will wait, and usually they show up.
Who regulates who uses the course?
Oh, it's open. Oh, so there's etiquette and rules.
In this day and age?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so all the disc golfers are sort of like, and it's actually, there's a professional disc golf association with a book of rules, and even amateurs follow that. And it covers things like that.
And what age group is interested in this game, mostly?
I think our oldest player is I know he is in his mid-70s, so.
But an average would be like maybe your age or younger?
Yeah, it's a pretty wide range at this point, yeah. Yeah.
I'm watching a lot of TV on that, and I hear people, announcers saying, this course is missing Brian today because he likes the right lays, and this is just too straight, and this is why Bill so-and-so is playing this. And I mean, as a layperson that never played the game, I'm listening to this, and I've heard it over a few times, and I didn't realize there's college tournaments of this, and I mean, that's a big sport. And
Yeah.
I mean, do we take people? At one time, truthfully, I didn't think tennis pro. I never thought pickleball would grow, and now I turn on the tennis channel and I see pickleball in their tournaments. So that shows you how wrong I am. But looking at doing the research I've done and going through the association, they have an awful lot of film and everything on there. I'm just shocked that, I mean, there's a lot of talent. These people out there, it seems like there's a lot of good people. It's not just throwing a Frisbee.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's not the 99-cent Frisbee that you give out at a party anymore.
Well, and the thing is, you can go and play by yourself, or you can go with 2 people. It's not like, golf is a lot more regulated. With disc golf, you can show up anytime during the day, and if a bunch of people show up at one time, you just take turns and they start, and then you start behind them, or they'll join together. It's pretty relaxed. It's not.
I'm just thinking though, if you're going across like, when you're going and people are having a sandwich and a Frisbee's going across, or you're talking about the parks there and people are walking, to me, it seems like you need something, a piece of property, and I don't know if we have one in Sebastian, that's going to be the primary use for that. Otherwise, I see more negatives than positives.
Yeah, but we don't, Filbert, you're there. Do you see people
Yeah,
picnicking and all over the place?
I've never seen anyone
pretty
picnicking,
quiet.
and that's why I'm not upset about the playground equipment, because I don't see much activity there either. However, I don't really agree that it takes a piece of land that you just dedicate to disc golf. Because number one, it's not going to be lit, you're not going to be playing at night. Sebastian doesn't have the infrastructure to have, at least at this juncture, an 18, a course that people are going to come to compete on. However, there may be, there's college kids, there's adults, that this is just really good exercise that you can get out, you're in the fresh air, you don't have a lot of, injuries.
I agree with you. That's why I just don't know how much of an investment that we really should be making in this.
I think that from what I have seen on the current price, you can put in, as long as you already have the land, you can put the equipment in for 9 holes for about $15,000. That's the equipment. Okay, so you have to have labor, you have to have the determination, you have to plot where these are going to go. and that was not like the cement pad. But, I didn't realize it, but you're right, when I walked Hobart, there's no cement pads. There's just a basket. So it's 5 gallons of cement that are, so that you can dig them up and move them somewhere else as things change. Was that purposeful?
Yeah, yeah, and usually what happens, at least in a lot of the parks I've seen, the disc golf, like at some point, like the city will seed it, and then there'll be like a group of people that go all the time, and then they'll love their park, and then they'll, if anything needs to be done, they'll have fundraisers, might have like a week play, throw in $1 a week, and then they'll have like a pool of funds. If a basket needs to be replaced or something like that, they'll do it. So it's really just getting it off the ground is the only thing.
So Brian, can you and Todd exchange information so that you might be able to get together, and if you want someone else from the club to go get as much input, and maybe we can see what happens in another month or so?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Do you need a motion for that? No, okay. Just an action. Todd, thank you for coming.
Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next to the cemetery.
All right, moving on now. New business.
Mr. Chair, we have none tonight.
No new business. All right. Items for the next agenda and date, November 14th, 2022. Okay.
So one of the things, depending on how long it takes us to get together and kind of go out there and walk and look and see what our options are, we could have something to come back in November, at least an update. Well, I'll provide an update, even if we haven't made it too far. I'll at least give you all an update on that. And one thing I did fail to mention, and I can't believe I did this, but not this Friday, but next Friday is our Halloween costume contest. I didn't write it on my notes. So not this coming Friday, but next Friday, I think it's October 28th, is our Halloween event down at the Twin Piers location. So, as many of you as can come, I'd appreciate it to be our judges for the costume contest. Registration starts at 5:30. The costume contest will begin at 6:15. So we'll have all the kids come out in their costumes, and we'll have some crafts and candy like we do in the past, or like we've done in the past, and then judge their costumes. And then following that, the police department will have their movie screen, and we'll have a movie showing following the costume contest at 7 o'clock. So 5:30 is registration begins, along with giving out candy and crafts. And then 6:15, the judging starts for the costume contest. So hopefully everyone can come out and join us.
Did
and be
you
there.
redo the columns for the
We
judging?
did. If you have some time this week, you can stop by and we can look at it. I know Miss Kathy Testa was involved. I met with her a couple weeks ago.
Or do you want to just
get her
email it to me, or
I can. We can email it to you.
do you want?
I'll do that.
Unfortunately, I'll be in Memphis having a Halloween party.
Are you coming?
Definitely.
Okay, are you going to come? Just maybe email it to all of us.
Okay. I'll email the document out to everyone, but
It's fun.
it'll be a fun night. It's fun to see all the kids.
Yeah, it's a good time.
I believe Vice Mayor Jones has committed to be a judge as well, so we'll have him there as well, and it'll be a fun night.
So on next month's agenda, Brian, is that when we'll determine the community member that will be recognized in December?
Yes, so that'll come back at the next meeting as well. Like I said, Mr. Denise and I, and we'll get together with the committee I gotta look and see who the applications are to determine what other community member I can include on the panel. We'll decide who the person is that we recommend to you all, and then it'll be up to you all to accept that recommendation or to choose someone else.
Okay. Thank you for all your hard work, Brian.
If there's nothing else, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Meeting is adjourned. Yeah.